Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome, welcome to this special 4th of July weekend edition of Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you, and as per is customary,
It's called a salute to all nations, but mostly America.
Great.
that's right, Sam Eagle, and Kermit there on the end. I love that drop. Lou, how you doing on this wonderful 4th of July weekend?
Feeling so patriotic. But then I always do. What can I say? I'm an all-American kind of guy.
That's right. And you know what? I think a lot of us are feeling pretty patriotic on this weekend. I saw a lot of fireworks displays, not just in my area, but all over the world. All over the country for sure, but the world was celebrating as well, which is really cool. Really awesome stuff. Love it. Also, too, I don't know if I should have put this up before the show. Whoops. But Despicable Me 4, I guess, really did some amazing numbers this weekend as well. Obviously, you know, we deal more, but over $200 million worldwide for that opening weekend. Let me see if I can get the box office here. Let's see. Yeah, Hollywood Reporter right here. Let me see here. Despicable Me 4 rules July 4th with $122 million opening. Maxine Scares up $6.7 million. Just a fantastic showing from a great franchise, one that Universal is very proud of. And Lou, have you seen the Despicable Me franchise? What do you think about it?
I've looked at a little of it. It's fun. It isn't my kind of thing, but it's fun. But
It's fun.
What we got to remember about those numbers, they're going to grow and grow and grow. And I think as wonderfully successful as it was for Disney, the Inside Out 2 numbers are about done, because all the better theaters and special format theaters and everything else now belong to the Minions. And so, you know, and they have nothing coming in to replace them, for many weeks now, until I think really until Wolverine Deadpool. So
Exactly.
we shall see, but I think it's going to enormously go beyond that. So
$229 million worldwide. I think you're right, Lou. I think the trajectory for this film is just going to take it sky high. I think also Inside Out 2, you know, it's last week's movie. Whereas this is the new one here. It's going to absorb all those PLFs that Inside Out 2 may have been benefiting from. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, all I was going to say was that Inside Out 2 has virtually no merchandising potential or ride potential or anything else. It's just a movie. Yep. Whereas this thing, I mean, the Minions are already everybody's favorite toy, and it's only going to get bigger.
Well, I think there's not one but two attractions now for Despicable Me, at least at Universal Studios Florida. Also, too, they have Universal Studios Hollywood with Despicable Me as well.
And also, that new parade has a big Minion contingent.
Right,
which is from the video I've seen. That parade at Universal is pretty spectacular.
Oh, I love that parade so much. I really do love how Comcast is really, or NBC Universal, whichever one, is really leaning into their history, their franchises, because they have a lot of great ones. Also, too, I don't know if you heard, Lou, but Universal Studios Hollywood for Halloween Horror Nights is going to do a special Monsters themed show in the DreamWorks Theater on Hollywood Horror Nights as well. So that's really cool. Kind of leaning into it a little bit.
I actually happen to be reading right now a book, a badly written but well-researched book, all about the Universal classic monster movies and how they came about and what they did. And it's pretty interesting stuff. It literally saved the studio because they were in deep financial trouble until those came along, and were relatively inexpensive to put together and enormously successful.
I love it. It's so cool to be getting a whole themed land around the monsters, because man, oh man, going to Universal Studios Hollywood, seeing the monsters represented in little bits of certain shows. Remember they had the Great Balls of Fire show as well. I don't know if you remember that, Lou.
Yeah,
back in the day.
But then way back at the beginning, they always had the makeup show, which now they're replicating on the actual customers en masse in Dark Universe. In those days, it was a stage show where they took one volunteer out of the audience and basically made him into Frankenstein or Dracula or whatever. But It's grown. It's grown. And
Absolutely, it
those
has.
movies are now coming on 100 years old, for God's sakes.
Whew.
So they were all middle 20s. So
Unbelievable. Very, very cool. I can't wait to see it when Epic Universe opens. That's the other thing too. The ticket situation is very interesting. But this is all about the movies. This is all about classic cinema. This is all about the vintage, the films that we are all nostalgic for, and obviously their associated questions. Now, Lou, I want to go ahead and start off the show with a patriotic themed question. Obviously, it's the theme of the show. What is your favorite for the July, Independence Day type of film? I know we're talking about it on the last That Park Place, and that's kind of what inspired this whole segment. I kind of wanted to get from you what's your favorite and why.
well, golly, I don't think I can pick one. Obviously, all of the World War II movies would qualify because that's the interesting thing, that all of the music, like God Bless America and the Yankee Doodle variations that were done after that. All of it happened to be in the 30s and 40s, which made it simultaneous with the world situation. But I was thinking about that today, and I don't think those films would have been any less popular without the country feeling like it was banding together in the face of war. Gosh, so many good ones. So many good ones. Funny enough, somebody was using a march. I think it was Marvin, the movie monster, was using, no, or maybe it was Ron Bradley, but they were using a march I didn't recognize as a kind of a theme song this week. And it reminded me of one of my favorites, and that is Bill Conti's theme from the movie Victory, which was that great movie about all the POWs playing a soccer game that had Stallone and Michael Caine and Pele as the stars. Did you ever see that?
I did not. I didn't
Yeah,
even know this
there it
movie
is.
existed.
It's
This
a great
is
movie,
great.
and the music is fantastic, and it's it's really, really special. And part of the motivation for producing the movie was they hired, as the other players, big soccer stars from all the various countries. And obviously Pele was known everywhere, but if you were from France, they had the French All-Star. And if you were from the Netherlands, they had a Dutch All-Star, all of them playing in this deal. And the idea is that the Germans want to have a soccer game versus the American POWs. And the American POWs agree to it. And Stallone, being American, is, of course, not a soccer player because that was in a day when we didn't have all these youth soccer leagues. But he wants to get in on the deal because what they're planning on doing is escaping when they're out there playing this game in Paris. And so he says, what about a trainer? I can do, sprains and splints and training and stuff. Okay, we'll let you in. And they contact the underground and they arrange that at halftime they're going to leave. But at halftime, the score is really close. And the soccer players say, no, we're going to stay and win the game, just to show those SOBs. So that's what happens. But it's and they get out because the crowd rushes the field in celebration of the victory, and they rush off along with them. So, but it's a fun movie, and Bill Conti's music is so good for this. I'd say even better than the outer space movie. Why can't I think of the Apollo movie? That he did the score for. And the idea that they play really funny with Stallone trying to play soccer because, of course, he can't basically. Not next to Pele, let's put it that way. And Max von Sydow is the German who puts it together. And anyway, it's a great movie. And the music could be the star of any fireworks show on 4th of July. It's really great. It's what frustrates me about this damn thing is that we can't play music for fear of all these copyright things.
I know. I was literally going to open the show, folks. I was really thinking about it for a long time. I was going to open the show playing on guitar the lead song for Top Gun. I was going to do it.
Yeah, there you go.
I was going to do it, but I didn't because I didn't have the setup. It was a little bit last minute of an idea, but one day, guys, I'll play you the opening to Top Gun on the guitar in a way that we can actually enjoy it together and not be fear from copyright reprisal. That would be nice. But no, Victory. That sounds like an amazing
Which,
film.
for those of you who are overseas, for some reason in Europe they called it Escape to Victory, so it goes under two different names. I don't know why. Probably that same copyright bugaboo. But or maybe there was another movie called Victory they didn't want to be confused with. I don't know the history of that. See, there's one I don't know. For those of you who call me a know-it-all, who are you, and where are your? I'll be sending somebody to your house to reason with you.
So what about war movies? Do you have any favorites of those?
Oh, good. Only a few. But the other 4th of July movie I think everybody should watch if they haven't, and maybe more than once. Not the war that we were talking about against those unnamed Teutonic overlords, but unnameable, I should have said. But the movie version of the musical 1776 was awfully well done. If you haven't seen that and haven't heard those songs, I mean, it's a classic, and it was apparently Jack Warner's sort of pet project. There it is, by golly, with William Daniels and Howard Da Silva as Benjamin Franklin, and Ken Howard as Jefferson, and it has great songs and great humor, and it's also serious, so that's kind of fun. It's all about the constitutional, or rather the convention to write the Declaration of Independence, and they have fun with it. A friend of mine actually did the script, the book of the show, but they have these songs like where they're telling him, they're talking about who's going to write the text of the Declaration, and they tell Adams, if you're the one to do it, they'll run their quill pens through it. You're obnoxious and disliked. You know that, sir. I don't know if I broke the rules even by singing that much of it, but
no, you're fine. No, I think if it's performed separate from the actual soundtrack itself, I think it's quite all right. So no problem at all there. I know Captain John D also was very enthusiastic about this film. I know he was sharing it privately in DMs, and he also was commenting in the chat when you originally mentioned this, I believe in the last That Park Place live presentation there. So that is really cool. Man, those old school period pieces I love dearly, and that's why I think I have a fondness for 2000's Patriot. Now I get it. I understand it's not the best film out there.
In the chat, Polly's mentioning another great one, which is that John Adams miniseries on HBO. Awfully good, and deals with so many of the issues, because he was disliked because he defended the Brits, the Boston Massacre. And anyway, was an interesting man. And he and Jefferson had such a falling out, they didn't talk for years, but they both got in touch at the very end of their lives. And they died on the same day. So,
that's tough. Now, Ben Franklin was like what? He was like around 100 when this whole thing kicked off. I want to say
late 70s, I think. But yeah, he was a pretty astounding guy. Pretty incredible. And go ahead. Patriot, everybody always mentions too, which is great. But my better half is over there in the background saying, "I love the Patriot," and so there you go.
I love the Patriot. See, this is why he, your wife and I get along so well, because man, we have some good taste.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Anyway,
I love the Patriot. I love this film so much. I have both the HD extended version, also the 4K theatrical version.
Wow.
Yes. Very, very good. I really dig this film. I understand Roland Emmerich's not everybody's cup of tea. I get that whole thing. But John Williams' score in this film in particular is so good. It's so emblematic of of that Revolutionary era.
Now, if you
but
want
it's
to go
also
with a
kind of
John Williams
sweeping.
score
Mhm.
and a movie that is a comedy that could be construed as a patriotic movie, you would go to the one that everybody thinks is Spielberg's mistake, but I don't, and that's 1941,
Yep.
which is so much fun. And the music by John Williams. In fact, once upon a time, I was spending a rather extended time at a kind of a health clinic place, and when I got on the treadmill, the music I used to march on the treadmill to was the theme from 1941. So that's a great movie. Ah, yeah, Ned Beatty and
It
La Folie Grande de Hollywood, eh?
You gotta have those international posters in there for sure. Comedy spectacular.
And of course,
It's
Belushi
really
is the crazy fighter. And it's a true story, a little, about what happened in LA during the war when they thought a Japanese mini sub surfaced off the coast and fired a couple of shots at some oil wells near Bakersfield and called it a day. But suddenly everybody was expecting an invasion.
why do you think it didn't do well?
I don't think people were ready for a wacky comedy from Spielberg. Frankly, they felt disappointed. But the curse of being typecast as a cinematic genius and deciding you want to do something fun instead of something intergalactic or historical in another way. I don't know. But I think it's a great romp of a movie. As long as you walk in saying this is going to be a romp and a kind of slapsticky kind of thing, and you go with it. And the secret of that, of course, is the people in it that play it straight and are great at it. What is it? Robert Stack is the general who's wondering why all this crazy stuff is going on, and he plays it totally straight down the middle, and that's the way it should be done. If everybody in Airplane was saying, "Hey, we're telling a joke," it wouldn't be funny.
Right. Yeah.
The funny part
it's-
is look at Leslie Nielsen in that with all those totally grim deadpan lines. Anyway, 1941 is a fun picture. Go see it.
it was also very expensive for the studio that funded it. I can't remember which one exactly.
I'm pretty sure it's
Was it?
Universal.
And was it Universal?
I'm
It might
pretty
have
sure it's
been.
Universal.
Yeah, Universal Pictures. You're right. $35 million. Now, folks, that was in 1979 when this film actually came out. Obviously, 1 year later, you would have Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that was a budget for $20 million. So
Yeah.
this was quite expensive for the time, as one could probably imagine, and just didn't do all that well. And nobody, really remembers it. What is it?
I do.
Just a year later, Raiders of the Lost Ark comes out and blows the doors off of everything. You do.
I remember all or most. But I also remember we're here to answer questions. We got any questions?
Well, wasn't there a lot of material cut from 1941?
Oh, I
don't know
bet there
this.
was. But, such is life in Hollywood. What's been amazing me on the genre guys now, we have done 2 movies that had big preludes that were expensive to shoot that got cut off. And those are Demolition Man, which had this entire epic stuff at the beginning that was cut way down, but they had to keep it in because, as the writer said, unless you know how bad things are, you don't know what it. I think the way he put it was, if you haven't seen Kansas, you don't understand why Oz is so great. So, but then the one we just did last night, that'll be up shortly for everybody who's a member on on the Pro channel, and then be here in a couple of months, is Escape from New York, which has Kurt Russell as this former special forces hero who goes bad and robs a federal depository and gets caught. And that all happens before the movie starts. And they actually shot it and decided we don't need that. We can just start when it's happening. So, and they spent, just to give you the relative numbers of the numbers you were just quoting on this, they spent $6 million and they made $26 million. So as percentages go, that's a pretty good deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a excellent deal. If you get, if you're twice the budget, you're in a pretty decent spot. 3 times is really where you make your money, at least nowadays. But to what? I mean, you're talking what, 5 times the original investment right there, or just about pretty good.
But in the era
before
before streaming and HBO and Showtime and Amazon and more kinds of physical media, back when it was VHS or bust, you had less ways to make it back. So, yin and yang.
And I was actually just looking this up, Karen Owen, and yes, it looks like the original run for 1941 was 2.5 hours. I guess Universal felt that it was a little bit too long for a blockbuster film, so it was ended down to just under 2 hours. So yeah, there was a lot of material left on the cutting room floor.
And you have to remember, the longer your movie is, the fewer times a day the theaters can run it.
Yep.
And they don't like long ones either, unless they can charge, through the nose.
Right. Because, if you can get that, fifth showing in, that's a huge boon for the theaters and for how many people can actually see your film. That's actually a big problem right now with PLFs, or premium large format screens.
Right.
There's not enough of them.
Yep. And there are many, many more than there used to be, but they can't build them fast enough.
Can't build them fast enough. And I've always said for a long time, hey, these multiplexes, which that's something we can get into as well, is the development of the multiplex from the Cineplex. But these multiplexes who have multiple screens, I have 20-something screens or something like that. They'll usually be in some retail establishment like a mall or something like that. It's like, whoa, pare down how many screens you have, make more of them PLFs, you're going to be good to go. Just because the content, the amount of films coming out.
But wait a minute. The alternative to that position is, they don't stay in the special screens as long, and therefore, all right, I can fill it up for 2 weeks. But after that, is there any fallover? And secondly, with the shortage of product, period, due to strikes and budgets and all the other things we all know about, I don't know if I want to put the capital investment into that theater to do that kind of renovation.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
You were talking about the multiplexes. When they first began, I remember these grand old movie houses, the Stanley Warner on Hollywood Boulevard, massive cathedral of cinema. And how they made it a multiplex was they took the rather large balcony, reinforced it engineering-wise for more weight, put a wall down the middle of it, and made 2 smaller venues upstairs. The big one downstairs stayed the same, but without the balcony. So a lot of those were just conversions before they were specifically made to be multis. And the idea behind the multis was, if I offer you a bigger variety of product, I'll fill them all up, even if they're smaller. And then there are other conditions. Mel Brooks, supposedly, had in his contract that his movies could not play in a house more than, I think it was 250 or 300 seats. Because he felt comedy, you got the laughs from the audience if everybody was shoulder to shoulder laughing together. And if they were all spaced out, they might think it's funny, but they don't actually physically laugh along with the crowd, that it hurt the movie. So there you go.
It's a fair point. I'm not saying that you don't want a small environment.
Well, and then, of course,
how many comedies do we see released in theaters anymore? But go ahead.
Yeah, and here's the El Capitan. When I was a kid, that theater had been renamed the Paramount. And all of that beautiful architecture that you see was covered up. There were these kind of rippled Florentine silver walls over everything. Which they did so they wouldn't have to dust and maintain and worry about all that stuff. But it sure made going with the movies a less exciting experience, to say the least.
Absolutely. No, I agree. At least they just covered them up and didn't just rip them down and do it in a way that couldn't be restored.
They still had to do a lot of repair when they rebuilt the theater, when Disney took it over.
Without a doubt. When Disney used to care about that stuff, am I right? Lou had a good opening joke.
An event. Well, yeah, well. Anyway, the one about
the flag.
I said that this background flag on our screen here, we got cheap from Disney because they weren't putting them on Main Street anymore for 4th of July. I don't know how many of you caught that story, but they didn't decorate for 4th of July. When we were discussing it on one of the other programs, I dug up a picture of Main Street, USA in the Hong Kong park. And it, on a regular basis, not just for the holiday, has more American flags than the American parks had for our nation's birthday.
Terrible.
If anyone on the street in
Terrible.
Hong Kong salutes that flag, they'll probably wind up in the summer camp across the street. But,
Summer camp. Oh yeah, I know. So disappointing, but hey, that doesn't mean that we can't celebrate ourselves, and we absolutely are. I was going to say about the PLF situation. You know, a lot of people, they don't even go if there's not going to be their favorite film in the PLF because, well, a lot of people have home theaters now. A lot of people have, you know, systems that can duplicate a lot of that theatrical magic. It used to be limited to just the theater. That's why I've always pushed for that. But I understand your point, Lou. There's a tremendous hurdle to getting more PLFs or even those conversions, like we were saying before. So it's a yin and yang. It's a tough business.
well,
That
I see
is
the
sure.
chat is talking about Saving Private Ryan, which of course is great, and
Yes.
Band of Brothers and Pacific,
Yeah.
which were indeed fantastic, but they weren't made for theaters. You know, so let's see. Band of Brothers, stuttering guitarist, is talking about shot of the original trenches that are still there. A lot of things are still there. When I went to London the first time in my life, when I was 16 in, let's see, the late 80s, early 90s, there were still holes along the streets in London, in the heart of London, where a building used to be that was bombed out in World War II and never fixed or replaced. They just had a fence across it. I remember going to cathedrals in Europe where they would have water in little sprayers running down the side 24/7. And what that water was doing was cleaning slowly the black smoke smudge in the rock, in the stone. And eventually, I guess it got it out. But Band of Brothers. And talk about great scores. Wow. And John Adams, great music.
This is obviously Saving Private Ryan, which, you know, was the inspiration for Band of Brothers and also to the Pacific on HBO. Some great series, just remarkable filmmaking, cinematography, storytelling imbued in some of these works right here. And I might say one of Tom Hanks' best performances for sure.
Yeah. And also, of course, these were shows on streaming networks who made their money not by selling commercials and not by selling tickets, but by gaining and keeping subscribers. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Somehow people were willing to remain a paying member every month of HBO, but Disney Plus for Acolyte, not so much. What can I say?
Well, and now we hear that David Zaslav is tapping into that again with releasing stuff like Harry Potter through that HBO service, and not a bad strategy. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, especially when they're still making more and when they're doing the stuff at the theme parks, keeping that IP not just beloved in the past but relevant in the present is a good business move. Absolutely.
Absolutely, 100%.
If we're so smart, why aren't we running Hollywood?
Yeah, I know. Well,
Because I don't want to move back, for one thing.
Well, Lou, you did. You know, I know your ghostly form might not necessarily remember, but you did run Hollywood for quite some time. Isn't that right?
Well, a big piece of it, yeah.
The last movie mogul for sure. We were talking on one of the prior shows, or maybe it was at one of the after parties. I'm not sure. But we were talking about the use of color grading, cinematography, desaturation in order to impart a certain tone. I know with Saving Private Ryan, it was one of the first films that I could remember where it was graded. It was kind of in a desaturated type look and feel. And I think, Lou, you were saying that is a little bit more accurate to Americans' perception of the war, because a lot of what they were seeing was black and white news and film footage.
Well, sure. Of course, a lot of the stuff that's on TV from the old days has been colorized because they decided nobody would watch it if it was black and white. So I see a super chat. I didn't say John Adams did the music for Band of Brothers, and I know it was Michael Kamen, and it was great. But I said the music. I mentioned the music from John Adams and Band of Brothers in the same breath as being two great scores from
Right.
historical miniseries. So that's to clarify. But yeah,
Hey,
Cayman, God, fantastic.
no problem at all with that. The Wild Man of Yavin at $10. Thank you so much for the super chat, and hopefully that clarification does clear some stuff up. Michael Kamen did the music. He did Prince of Thieves as well. Oh yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And also too, Ruby Hoove. Don't think I forgot about you with a super sticker. Right out jump. You've been so gracious on all of our programs. Thank you so much. I know you were in. I think Ruby. I think you were hanging around the Theme Park Casual and Bear Place 28 crew as well. So thank you so much for the support of all of our channels and networks. Very much appreciated that. And she's got a little fist bump sticker attached to that, which is awesome. Eric Stratham, I believe you've asked this a couple of times. Let's go ahead and get into it a little bit right here.
My
people
statue,
don't know.
yes.
Yeah, Lou, your statue's gone from the streets of Universal Studios Florida. What is going on? This is a tremendous statue.
No idea.
Please.
I never wore a coat like that. But anyway, it looks like an Abe Lincoln statue with somebody else's head stuck on top. But, anyway, I almost feel as though I should say I should shamelessly steal the epitaph of the great architect of churches and the creator of St. Paul's Cathedral, who is buried there. And all it says on his grave is, "Stranger, if you seek a monument, look around you." Christopher Wren, that is. Anyway, I don't do statues. But,
I guess not.
I find them rather cold myself. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, what is going on? I have no idea what's going on here. Hopefully they are restoring it. Hopefully we'll be back in its rightful place sometime soon. But boy.
Oh, well, here it says they take it down for the Macy's parade. And the caption on that picture. Go back to that picture. Somebody says the street is too narrow for the floats and things and the balloons.
It was back in 2018, though. So I guess take it down for the parades in general?
Once it's down, I guess it's gone forever. I don't know. Anyway, it's really irrelevant to me. So, and I'm sure to him, he had enough recognition in his life that. And after all, nowadays statues of famous movie moguls, including Walt. Unfortunately, taking a dump in the middle of Epcot.
With that scary lighting.
Universal monster lighting on Walt Disney. Go figure.
Well, hey, you know what? You better stay out of that spotlight, kid, because it'll fade your suit. That's what I've always been told.
Even if your suit's made out of bronze, it'll fade it. But
exactly.
Anyway.
Space Dave 2000 with a question right at the gate as well. Hardest studio to work with, Lou. In your experience, what do you got?
My experience and that of others is famously Disney. To give you an idea, back when I was a grip, mostly at Universal, people would talk about the fact that when you walk around the studio a lot, in fact, if you take a tour at Universal Hollywood anyway, where there's real movies being made, you'll see about every 2 or 3 stages kind of a little sort of trolley cart stacked up with wood. And that's because if a grip needs a 2x4, they go out there and there it is. And they bring it in and they put it into what they're building. They told me at Disney, that doesn't exist. You have to go to the wood shop and fill out a requisition and sign for a stick of wood. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's what I was told. Also, I knew a lady who was a very, very, very experienced attorney in the field of licensing and product placement and endorsements and all that sort of thing. And I think she might have been at Paramount when this happened. And a job in that work, but even higher up on the food chain, was opening up at Disney. And so she thought, what the heck, I'll go interview. She said other people, would talk about her. They'd know her background, whatever, be very welcoming, even if she didn't get the job in her career. She said she walks into the interview at Disney, and the first thing the interviewer asked her is, "What makes you think you're good enough to work at Disney?"
Wow, that's superior.
That makes things hard to work with. That's sure. I mean, each studio had their own personality, no doubt. I've always said I've been particularly saddened by the stress that's going on with Paramount, even though they've now found somebody to take it over. It seems the deal hadn't closed yet, but I think it will.
I think you mentioned it on the Action Jackson genre, guys. You were saying that in Paramount there was like some, it was kind of like a family because it would keep their people.
Well, they made a big point of promoting from within. If I had done more shows of what I did at Paramount, I would have moved up much higher because they supported the people that worked for them. But I only did a few over there, and so But I don't know. Warner Brothers was great until they weren't. They wanted me to take a rather sizable income cut and basically change the deal on something. And when I said, well, that's the deal, aren't we going to honor the deal? Sure, fine. And I never got another show there. So, everybody's got their own. I didn't pay a lot of attention to those kind of politics, or I would have not catered to them necessarily, but allowed for them. But, listen, I used to tell people, and it's absolutely true, when I had a resume where other people listed their credits and whatever, I put up at the top, I said, since I know the number one thing you really want to know whether you should hire me or not is he not a jerk to work with? I'm putting here a list of people you might know or be able to contact who will tell you I'm not. And then I listed all the people I'd worked with that we'd had, good relationships with, because ultimately a resume in this business is, especially since the advent of IMDb, which for all its flaws is relatively accurate, and they can look up in 5 seconds and see what you've done, So if it's that kind of job.
I know you can with T3PO, the program you're watching right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go, right there.
And this is Disney. I'm talking Disney in the the 90s, not the current regime. So they just have always had a little touch of arrogance about them. Anyway,
they have.
Oh yes, well, especially if you're dead, IMDb is really good at putting your current credits up. In my case, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, we discovered that IMDb is now covering all these channels. But once they saw Lew Wasserman, they put me together with the real guy, and they told you that he died when he died, and then they told you all the things he's done since, which is all of my stuff on these channels. So there you go.
In the archive footage section of Lew Wasserman's actual IMDb. You're represented, Ghost.
So, I mean, who knew that the great Lew Wasserman was on Floral Under a Rock and the Spice Lounge? And anyway.
Oh, it's fantastic. To the person who keeps this up, thank you. It's
not a person, it's a machine.
Yeah, maybe it is a bot.
The ultimate example of garbage in, garbage out.
Well, whoever keeps the machine alive, thank you.
I have a picture of my head here from over here. So, anyway.
Very funny.
So, for me personally, they were all good and they all did me dirt, and that's life in the biz. So,
I guess you're right about that one. Disney has always had a little bit of an arrogance, that's for sure. I think it really went to overdrive when Michael Eisner came in the door and wanted to turn into a premium theater.
And by the same token,
studio.
As much as I said nice things about Paramount, there were a lot of middle management people at Paramount who were trying to earn points with the boss by basically saving him 10 cents here and 20 cents there, and in the process alienating a lot of good people. So that's not too smart, but that's what they do because that's the level they're at. Hey, people in this business are just like the people you work with. There's some good ones and some dumb ones, and some people who get it and people who don't get it. And that's life on planet Earth. What can I say?
Life on planet Earth, indeed. And I love stuttering guitarists. little messages there. Thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, there we go.
To include. Thank you so much, stuttering.
You want to get patriotic wood? Play that clip.
Oh! I know what you're talking about, Lou. All right. Let's see if we can get away with this and not actually get
when
the
he told me
copyright guides.
when he told me we were gonna have a patriotic show today, I said, "Here you go."
Here you go, right there. The amazing Linda Carter.
Now that's what I call patriotic.
Is there anything less patriotic than that? That was off Twitter right there. I believe Linda herself actually posted that on, I think, her Instagram.
I don't know.
So there you go.
The channel that constantly jumps into my shorts feed on Facebook that had this. So
fantastic. Look,
man, if that ain't the red, white, and blue, I don't know what is.
Absolutely, 100% patriotic. And this was produced in the 1970s. Again, I think it was a little bit more of a patriotic time, only because it was a bicentennial around that same period, right? So 1976.
Yeah, 76. But of course, you also had all the troubles of the what could you call it? The aftermath of Vietnam and everything. So.
Yeah. It's interesting how this stuff is cyclical in the way that it is. Or we're either for a conflict, not for a conflict, for a country, not for a country. It's very interesting stuff for sure. But Linda, well, she was always there to to raise our spirits.
Entertain the troops.
Yes, entertain the troops. That's exactly it. Speaking of, Barry Plays 28 entertaining us with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Barry Plays. Very much appreciate it, and very much appreciate you, Wild Man of Yavin, for your contributions as well. Thanks for the live stream. Hope you both, VashSky and Lou, are having a great 4th of July weekend. Thank you.
It would be better with boysenberry syrup for my pancakes, but other than that,
he's gonna keep.
I just hope that the new merger inspires them to think, if we brought it back, we could sell it to all 42 parks. that might make it worthwhile. Call up the Smucker guys and see what we can work out. So anyway,
that's right. Barry, let's get some boysenberry syrup for those $21 French toast entrees at Lamplight Lounge.
There you go.
Yes. Oh, Josh Hammond. Does she really follow you on Twitter? That's cool. I like that. That's awesome. Wow. And I do agree with you.
Yes, she does.
For sure. She looks fantastic. It looks good. And looked very good back in the day. So awesome stuff there.
And sings very well, too, by the way.
Does she really?
Yeah.
I actually had no idea that was.
She did a lot of musical specials, and she has a nightclub act, I believe. And she's great lungs.
Hey,
quick, cool. Another question. Bail us out here, gang.
Yes. Let's see here. No wonder Disney's production budgets are so overblown. Yeah, they're just going crazy.
They are, because they don't care, apparently. Because it's not like the tools don't exist to limit such things. Somebody has to be able to say no. And nobody knows the word no unless the question is, did we ever make any mistakes? And then the answer is always no.
I don't know if you saw this, Lou. Is it a modern story? Yes. Is it patriotic themed? It is, I believe. Captain America: Brave New World, almost a $400 million budget. This is anywhere between 350 to 375. Yeah, exactly. That they'll admit to, right? Who knows what the actual budget is? We won't know that for maybe a year after the film actually comes out. How does this happen, Lou? How does a budget get this out of control? What can you say from your experience?
Nobody is giving a damn. Look, if there are reshoots because stuff doesn't work and negative test scores, then obviously the script wasn't ready to begin with. I think I mentioned last time that we found on Genre Guys when we were doing Demolition Man that even though it was a hugely successful show, and even though it did go over budget because of basically weather in a couple of the locations, they played with the script for 6 years before they shot a foot of film. If Disney had done that, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. The only reason to reshoot is because what you did didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, was it predictable? Probably. Did you pay attention enough to predict it? No. Did you reshoot because you want to recast it? Yes. Should you have seen that the first day or two and pulled the person and taken a week off and regrouped and figured things out? Would it have been cheaper than? Yes. And are any of these techniques to keep things reasonable unheard of in the history of motion pictures? No. So what's their excuse? Their excuse is that they have an attitude, and not just on movies, but certainly, as we've recently seen, on theme park attractions, on what they need to do to compete with other people or anything else. Their attitude is not, what can we do better? Can we do it safer? Can we do it if we took a little more time, a little more effort, a little more thought? No, their excuse is, well, we're Disney. They'll come anyway. Screw it. I guess the lesson that that's not true is being learned certainly by anybody who would dare emulate it, if not by the people who still do it. Have you noticed something, by the way? I was thinking about this the other day.
Sure.
Who is the person that we haven't seen hide nor hair of through the Acolyte debacle and the Tiana debacle and the Epcot cheap airport waiting room debacle? Haven't seen him around. Have you heard or seen anything from Bob in the last couple of weeks?
I have not. I know that he just celebrated the fact that he was knighted in Europe. Also, too, I know that he was celebrating the fact that he made it to 50 years within the company. Think about it. He's been at the Walt Disney Company.
Well, it wasn't the Walt Disney Company. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still.
I mean, it's like 50 years, and he describes it as a ride of a lifetime. And I think Jonas had the perfect quote for this. He said, when is this ride end? That's what we're all asking.
Well, the question is, does it have re-rideability?
Ooh, yeah. Well, we're finding that out the hard way as Iger made it back into the company.
All I'm saying is he's always there to take credit. We've had a stretch now of, you could arguably say, 3 major and several minor things that they touted as the next big thing that have flopped or are failing. He disappeared.
It is quite interesting.
There's a magic word. I even did an article in that Park Place about it.
Sure.
Called accountability. Accountability.
Yeah.
Not for him.
I guess not. So he did make a statement, and I kind of wanted to end the show with this. Unfortunately, John Landau, a famous producer for many, many years, has unfortunately passed away at 63, very, very relatively young. He was working on Avatar 3 and the subsequent Avatar films that James Cameron has in the works. He was instrumental. This is why he's featured so prominently with Pandora, the World of Avatar at Disney's Animal Kingdom. He was instrumental in getting this land built to the exacting vision of James Cameron as kind of the intermediary almost between James Cameron and the Imagineers. Worked alongside Joe Rohde to bring this world to life. Was excited recently about visiting the Imagineering campus and developing maybe new attractions, specifically Avatar at Disneyland. Most recently, very, very sad that he is no longer with us, as he's been, he's contributed to so many films. You can see right here his body of work with Titanic, obviously, Avatar, Alita Battle Angel, and then obviously Avatar: The Way of Water and Avatar 3, Dick Tracy. But Titanic was kind of the one I kind of wanted to spend a little bit of time on because this was the most expensive film in Hollywood at that time. It was in production for a long, long time. They had built essentially, I mean, like 80% of the ship in order to, and they put it on this huge rig that they could sink multiple times. It was extremely expensive production because they.
By the way, you know that same rig down there in Mexico.
Yeah.
You know what they used it on the same way? Master and Commander.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was on that rig too.
Wow. Okay, so that's a bit good, a good bit of trivia that I had no idea. Makes sense that you would want to reuse assets like that because, man, the studio spent a fortune on this. And I know John Landau, he was actually saying about his experiences there. He's like, we were kind of convinced that we were never going to work in the town again because they had spent so much money. And James Cameron actually foregoed his portion of the the box office earnings because he wasn't doing it for a flat fee. He was actually doing it for a percentage of the box office. He foregoed that in the lead up to its release as kind of a kind of an olive branch towards the studio to say, hey, sorry, we went so over budget, but here as kind of a consolation prize, you can have this. In case this whole thing doesn't work out, the studios took it thinking, this film's never going to make its money back, and boy, oh boy, did it ever, becoming just a juggernaut of the film, was the number one film of all time upon its debut, and it lasted for several years up until, the release of Avatar in 2009. So just an instrumental person attached to big budget cinema, especially of today. Very sad. And like I was saying before, Bob Iger did come out and speak about this. Bob Iger on the passing of John Landau. We are deeply saddened by the loss of John Landau, a great person, a friend, and a towering figure in our industry. Our deepest condolences to his family, friends, and to Jim Cameron himself, his partner for 27 wonderfully productive and creative years. I do agree. So we don't get much from Bob in terms of The Acolyte or Tiana or any of the modern failures of the Walt Disney Company. But, he shows up to do stuff like this.
A statement. It doesn't mean he shows up in the sense of
that's a fair point.
Making a speech at the funeral, or he's not out there in public where somebody can ask him an uncomfortable question about this other stuff.
Right.
Anyway,
there's a great little Easter egg at the conclusion of the lead e-ticket attraction, the Flight of Passage ride at Disney's Animal Kingdom version of Pandora. At the exit, you can actually see 3 handprints, and that's the 3 people most involved with the production of that land. Joe Rohde and JR, JC, James Cameron, and John Landau is the 3rd. So very, very sad to see him go, but these things unfortunately do happen.
Yes, we all die someday.
Thank you, Lou.
A person dies once, but a movie can die 1,000 times in 4,000 cinemas.
Let's end on a question here. This is from Jane Monroe. Accountability. Does that have anything to do with your ability to spend money? Bob gets to spend whatever he wants to. The accountant in his ego said he could. How does a production, is it kind of like a sunk cost thing where it's just, hey, we're so far into this, we can't pull out now. Let's go ahead and get this to the finish line?
Maybe, but do you let the same people do the next one?
That's true. Well, I mean, if I would assume if it's successful, yeah.
And the next one.
Right.
At what point do you say, great creatives, marvelous folks, great to have a beer with, but not giving them another $200 million to make a movie with, because they'll spend $3 million.
It's so ridiculous, Lou, just because I think of it from the standpoint of like this. Like, okay, if somebody like Disney spends $400 million on Captain America and it has no chance of getting its money back, but we've sunk all this money into it, I think, wow, that could have been spent on so many other things, like your theme park operation, for example, while Universal rises with their competition, or even other projects that, it could have had a much better chance of making its money back. I know they're doing the same thing with Snow White. I mean, do accountants necessarily think like that, or is it just, hey, I'm in my division, I'm trying to get the most money that I can possible for it? Is there a disconnect between maybe the executives and C-suite and that whole thing, or I don't know what that is.
Neither do they.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's so sad they don't think along those lines, because I do. I absolutely
Well,
do.
see, and the whole equation is made more difficult. And I keep stressing this, and people don't get it. The way we keep score has changed because of things like Disney Plus, where it's not about ratings. I mean, you can quote the ratings, and we've noticed that the Acolyte's now fallen out of even the top 10. You can quote the numbers and the views, and all of that swell. And unless it translates into retained and growing subscriptions to the service, it don't mean a thing. It's not like butts in seats that paid a ticket to sit in them and hopefully bought some popcorn from the theater. It's not like ratings that lead to advertising in television. I always describe it. I made this speech 100 times if I made it once. What we are in the entertainment industry business. I always hate the industry, like there's steel mills and manufacturing plants. In fact, the Directors Guild, which briefly went on strike, and when I say briefly, I mean a matter of hours, once upon a time, and
Right.
our then president, whose speech was actually written by another guy, he said what these big industrial companies that have been buying studios, like Sony and Cap Cities and all these, what they don't understand about the movie business when they buy a studio is that it's a studio as opposed to a factory. The capital equipment goes home every night. Okay?
That's
Think
right.
about that. That's seriously important stuff. So what we sell, our product, our one and only product, no matter what form it takes, is attention span. We sell your eyes, your ears, your brain paying attention to something. Isn't that, if you think about it? I don't care if you're reading my book. Oh, I do care if you'd like to get my book, my 2 books. We don't care if it's a magazine or a newspaper. We don't care if it's a movie or a TV show or a theme park or a hotel or whatever it is. You are buying the experience of that moment and paying attention to it. And whether the payout is literally paying for a ticket or a DVD, or whether it's paying for the products that the sponsors are paying for to put their attention span stuff in front of your attention span, that's all it is. That's all and everything it is. Well, that's why it's not the Coca-Cola business. That's why it's not the Ford Motor business. What you take away is your impression. And what you share with other people for word of mouth is your impression. So if I want to charge you a whole lot and you find that your attention span has been cheated of something better, you don't come back.
It's
And as long as you think of it that way, then
Right.
if you understand that, if you're a captain of this industry, your whole goal is what can I do to make people's impression A, favorable, and B, repeatable, and have them think of my company as a good bet for spending their attention on, however it's monetized. These people don't think that way. They think, well, it's about this movie. Well, if it's about the movie, then you want the movie to be the best. And to make it the best, you'll spend any and all amounts of money because, by God, it's going to be the best. They're not thinking about what you're really selling. They're thinking about the physical product. And when you could score that based on how many tickets got sold, we read all these stories. Oh, the box office just now for the Minions was so many $100 million. That's great. You've got a scorecard and you've got something to compare others with, because let's face it, even if one's a comedy and one's a drama, or one's a horror movie and one's a animated movie, they're all competing in the same marketplace, which is when people walk up to the ticket booth at the AMC, which ticket do they buy? But if the scorecard is, because I like this one particular IP, I'm going to hang with you for a while and see what you do with it, even as I think you're ruining it. And every time I stick around because, well, maybe this will be the one that turns it around, and it's not.
Mhm.
Why else am I there? Why should I stick around and see what you do with the next one? Why should I care? And why not, since they're a year apart, can't I drop it and come back in a year if I'm still willing and see if you screwed it up again? See, I've said when people have been talking about these viewing numbers and whether, this new one is even worse than Acolyte, which was the worst one before so-and-so. I think with Acolyte, people were saying, all right, I'll give you another chance to turn around your mishandling of this thing that I used to love and buy all the toys for and buy the DVDs and watch over and over again. And when it wasn't, all right, I'll watch the first episode. And do you notice they always put 2 episodes in at the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not by accident. First of all, it makes more likely that you'll watch the second one at least. But otherwise, it's double the impressions, the minutes, the hours. If you took those numbers for the combined 2 episode thing and split them in half, you're getting closer to the real numbers. But a lot of people stuck with it till about the second or third or fourth of that show and said, sorry, I give up on you guys. And since you're the reason I come here and I don't care about all the other stuff you're offering, bye. Or, well, the only reason I really pay this monthly fee is because you've got this Bluey thing and my kid could watch it all day. Great. Go on Amazon and for $20 you can buy the discs and take them home once and have your kid watch it all day long, and you don't have to buy all this other stuff you don't want. It's the revelation, really, that began with the whole understanding of what that cable bundle really contained. People who were angry about the nonsense in the so-called Don't Say Gay bill, and were angry about the bibbity-bobbity boys at the boutique, and were angry about a lot of things they felt were going against not just their understanding of the brand, but their trust in the future of the brand. And when they found out, which a lot of people really didn't know, that ESPN was part of that brand, and then they found out that out of their $49.95, $75.95, whatever it was monthly that they were paying to the local cable guy, that a whole $7, $8, $9 of that, the biggest component in the bundle, was going there. That was a revelation. That was just, and that's when people started looking at these whole things, whether the things were called Netflix or Disney Plus or anything else, and said, yeah, but what are the pieces? Where are the pieces of the puzzle? And so, I think a lot of people, when they heard about Disney Plus originally, when it was announced, they said, oh, I'll be able to watch all the great old classic Disney movies over and over and over again. That's worth it to me. But when they found out, no, actually what it is you're paying for all this stuff that you have now seen videos of the executives in charge of the creation gleefully talking about how they're going to indoctrinate your children. Maybe you're not so happy to do that anymore. And as the actual products get worse and worse, look, we're all in tough times, since the whole COVID mess, and we're all trying to struggle to get back. And if you can cut, even if it's $10 a month out of that, that's $10 that in 2 months you can buy that Bluey disc and you're done. That's $10 worth of, well, we can have steak tonight, maybe. I know it's only $10, but the commitment for what you get, that's the scorecard now, not the box office. And
it's so true.
And the media hasn't adjusted to that because they can still sell stories about box office. But the media, God, can I transition into another rant?
Please go ahead.
These large, what I call pixie dust sites, and I'm not going to name any names. Well, maybe I'll name one. Let me go find that one that I made a big deal of.
Oh no! You're gonna put somebody on blast. Sorry, guys.
Here we are. Allears.net.
Mm.
Okay. What these outfits do, here's what I said in our backstage thing. I said, we all know that these sites are basically a minefield of filler, fluff, propaganda, clickbait, and nonsense. The formula is A, write a vague but seemingly edgy headline with no real reason behind it. Then B, state the quote problem you have invented in 4, 5, 6 full of fluff and the word immersive paragraphs. And then, all with knowledge everybody has, and then talk about the threat or danger, which is total BS. And meanwhile, you've fed us a lot of ads and a lot of clickbait. So, for example, here is a story that appeared in All Ears Net. I don't know. You want to put it on screen? I'll send you the link, or just.
Oh, sure, please, please.
Okay, hang on a second. Let's see here. Copy. Go here. I'll put it over here, and you can pick it up over there.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, why we're worried about Universal's new Epic Universe announcements. Oh my God, they're worried. Everybody else is saying, God, this is the greatest things in ever. I can't wait. But they're worried. And therefore you should be too. Well, I won't read you the whole thing, but you can see if you just scroll down on it, the stuff they put up. And what they're worried about is this. They're worried that because Disney has put up all of this concept art in blue sky that never becomes real. And the most classic example, they show you the model of the festival center at Epcot. Then they show you the reality of Communicore Hall. And then the next picture is of Dark Universe. So we've been burned with false promises, but we're going to keep our guard up because, golly, Universal stuff looks so good, but maybe it won't happen. And we'll keep you posted. Stick around. The only thing is, Universal has actually delivered. They've actually.
I'm just going to bring it up right now.
There you go. I mean, so because, and it's also a way of saying in the subtleness of it, hey, Disney, everybody does it. It's not that bad. And then on the same damn website, here's this
See right here.
Here's this one.
Pretty accurate. Pretty on model.
But here's this one. Everybody's excited about this new kids park in Frisco, Texas, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, but no, it turns out Universal's new Texas park might not be your thing. Here's why. Oh my God, I was going to go. It's not going to be my thing. Oh, I'm all worried. Let me look at 43 ads to find out why, bottom line, might it not be your thing? It's a kids park. And you don't have kids. Thanks. Goodbye.
Wow. Oh, all ears. Yeah.
And I'm not knocking them alone. This is all over the place.
Right.
Oh, God. And here it says, if you're not traveling with kids, this park may not be your best choice. Of course, even if you aren't traveling with kids, you could still check out the new park, but you may find there aren't a lot of activities geared towards adults. What a shocker. A kids park without a lot of things geared to adults. Unless, of course, those adults are parents who want their kids to have a wonderful time. This means you won't likely see Velocicoaster 2.0 in the Universal Kids Resort. What a shock. There likely won't be any rides with high height requirements. What a shock. What a damn shock. How dare they come to see this when it's, in fact, I mean, God, this is bull, isn't it? Am I overreacting or
no, I don't think you're overreacting at all. I mean, it's like
this stuff just, it abounds out there in the universe of theme park related sites other than ours.
That's right.
And when you throw in the rest of they'll make a whole story out of, hey, there's a new flavor of pancake syrup at this restaurant at the park. Or, hey, there's a popcorn bucket with a new character on it. Oh my God, stop the presses. Call the Guinness book. Anyway.
It's crazy.
Anyway.
Absolutely insane.
It just abounds. And so all I'm trying to tell you folks is unless it's a headline on our stuff, because we have no axe to grind and we take no payola and we don't get the freebies and we don't get the $400 boxes of goodies to go tell you that Tiana can float. And my most recent joke about Tiana, by the way, was
Mhm.
somebody was talking about how it's the mountain of broccoli. And I said, I know how they can save it. They get a product placement licensing deal with Bird's Eye. And it's Tiana's Broccoli Adventure. It's brought to you by Bird's Eye.
Yes, I think
The Green Giant, you know.
Marvin the Movie Monster called it broccoli. And by the way, he's writing for that Park Place, so there's your little connection right there.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's just you definitely do have apologists. I call them, right. You have these media personalities or groups that are apologizing on behalf of a company or corporation in order to, like you said, to hopefully get those freebies, to hopefully get that swag bag. That
well, or at the
swag
very
bag for the
least,
opening
that they
Tianas.
get the viewers to their site who
Right.
like these places, and therefore they offer them up like a Sunday roast today to their advertisers. Anyway,
I mean, you can.
this had
well,
nothing
you
to
can
do
be
with
fair.
everything we're supposed to talk about, but as long as we got close to it, I thought I'd get it off my chest, as they say.
No, I think it's good. You see this with films. You see this with different cinema. So, like The Acolyte, for example. Why are you apologizing for something that is so awful? And why aren't you giving other films their due credit or other series their due credit just because ideologically they might not be aligned with yours? Very, very strange. It's very, very weird.
And you know what?
Mhm.
People refuse to be fooled. The proof of that being, here we are, holiday weekend, and people are putting up pictures of how totally, completely empty the Magic Kingdom is. How the wait times for things that should be 2 hours are 5 and 10 and 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And this on the weekend where, hey, they've got this brand new ride they've been touting for years. All the in-the-know people should be there to be the first to ride it. But you know what? They see all the stories about how it's broken down to the point where it's only, it's running 25% of the time? Or is it that it's broken down 25%?
It's broken down at least 25%.
All right, so
from Culture Casino.
meanwhile, people might say, well, people are economizing. It's hot in Florida.
Mhm.
Our people who are at SeaWorld yesterday said it was so crowded they couldn't believe it. This is when people say, with all this stuff going down, I'd normally go to Disney like I always do. But gosh, I haven't been to SeaWorld in a couple of years. Maybe I'll go to give them a look. And when Epic Universe is alive and running, people are going to take a taste of that and say, And by the way, Universal is smart enough that they put in this great parade and a great nighttime show at their original park, which never gets the love that even Islands of Adventure does, to say, no, this one's viable too. And people go and try it and check it out. And this parade, my God, what a great parade. And now I'm seeing Lorena shows us they have these things. What are they called? They look like plastic ice cream cones, and it's kind of a variation on the
wand,
the wands, and they interact with the floats in the parade and do all kinds of things.
That's
and
cool.
I mean, she says they're $35, but you know what? They're worth or $30. They vibrate, they blow bubbles. It's a bubble wand, they call it. And you can use your wand to light up and activate the bubbles on your friend's wand, and it interacts with all the bubble wand carts. And by God, that's a fun toy. If I was a kid, I'd want that. If I'm a grown-up and I want it. What did they have a Tiana wand? What would they give you? A plastic stalk of okra?
Yeah, well, they have some spice they sell.
My point is, technology is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
If Universal can do it, Disney could do it, but Disney didn't do it. And when you ask them why, are they honest enough to say, that one got biased. We won't let that happen again. No, they'll tell you, well, people just, those are flash in the pan. Here, buy our non-bubbling, non-wiggling, non-humming popcorn bucket, please.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
It's not that they make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. God, look at Universal with all those awful screen-based rides. But when people said screen-based rides are awful, they said, oh, okay, we won't do that again.
Right.
They learn because they have the capacity, the humility to admit when they make a mistake.
Right. And
not a lot of that in the Disney boardroom. And the
and
problem
it would go
is,
such a
the
long
problem
way.
is, we went through this whole proxy fight thing, and all these big institutional investors stuck with him. Think they're going to do it again? Because at a certain point, it becomes about their own credibility. You can't keep backing lose. If you're a racetrack tout and every tip you sell loses, pretty soon you're not in that business anymore because the word gets out. Because nobody wants to recommend a recommender that loses. So anyway, any Hollywood questions out there? I got a little carried away. I apologize. But
no, you're fine. You're fine. I just want to go ahead and do a couple of things right here. So Amnuk with the $400 million on the movie. It's almost half a Galaxy's Edge. I know you're thinking the same thing that I'm thinking of. That's for sure. And by the way, we have an amazingly generous super chat from Wild Man of
here's
Yavin.
somebody.
Thank you.
Here's one.
So much.
PR Burke 1. Thank you, Wild Man of Yavin too. But let's see here.
Well, hang on. Before we get to PR Burke 1 here, let me just say thank you so much for the $50 super chat, sir.
Wow, yeah,
I very much appreciate it. That this is really cool. For nothing more than Lou's perspective. Thank you, Lou. Hey, that's pretty cool. Thank you so much for that. Unbelievably generous. Thank you so much again. PR Burke 1 with the $10 super chat with a question. One time you mentioned during doing a show on the movie Roller Coaster. Did you ever put that on YouTube? It was filmed partly at King's Dominion and Ocean View Park here in Virginia.
I don't remember what the date was on that, and I don't think it's come to this channel yet. It's still in the members only stuff on the Pro channel, which is where they start.
So let me see if I can actually find the link here. It will let me share it, but it won't let me. Well, obviously, you have to be a member to actually see it. So let me see if I can actually find it for you. I'll put it right here in the chat. And also, too, if you wait long enough, you can see it here for free on T3PO after 90 days past its release. There you go. That should be it. That is the episode of Genre Guys with talking about Roller Coaster. Right there at the bottom of the chat. So just look for my chat. You'll see it right there, or at least you should.
And what was the date?
The date on it was 1 month ago. Let me see the exact date. May 15th, 2024.
All right. So July 15th should. Oh, well, pretty soon. It's coming.
Pretty soon. Yeah.
Coming soon to a VashSky near you.
Let me see if I can get a day calculator right here.
Yes, it was day calculation Dominion for you. And Ocean View. And of course, the big finale is at Magic Mountain in LA. And the first scene is at a park outside of Santa Barbara. Anyway.
Let's see. It will be coming out a little bit in the mid-August. That roller coaster episode will. So August 13th, it's giving me right now. So
good.
The Friday closest to that, that'll be coming out. So you can look forward to that. Thank you so much, PR Burke. 1 for your $10 super check. And again, Wild Man of Yavin.
PR Burke, are you from anywhere near the Isle of Burke?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Epic Universe, Isle of Burke looks absolutely cool. And that's the cool thing about having a love for these films and movies, is that now you have these two big theme park companies in the form of Disney and Universal bringing some of those things to life. So now they can live on even past the films that were released around it. So that's pretty cool as well. Let's see here. I think that just about rounds us out.
Well, wait, somebody said something about remakes. Jan Monroe.
Oh, remakes.
I know that there's a lot of movies that get remade. What movie? Okay. Answer, 90% of them. And the answer is, first of all, the average remake is an excuse not to think of something new. Just like the average, well, we're going to do this franchise to death until we absolutely kill it movie is. Second of all, movies are great for a lot of reasons, but it is seldom, if ever, just the plot or just the story. And that's all a remake is. By its nature, it's a different cast, a different director, different designer. And so they may be good. I personally, and this is, I know, a minority decision, I personally think, for example, that Arnold is great going to Mars, but so's the remake. I think they're both really good movies, different from each other in a lot of ways. And that's, Total Recall. It seldom happens, but it happens. What you'd be surprised to know, however, is that a whole heck of a lot of the well-known hits of the 30s and the 40s are remakes of silent movies that you never saw. So, and sometimes several times. But the question is always, to me, is what's new about now that makes that story worth telling in a new context?
Right.
And if it was a really great movie, then it had really great performances that you can't do again, and really great direction that you can't do again. You can do it different and do it great. So the other thing that frustrates me so much about remakes, and this is probably less about movies that are remade, but about movies that are taken from TV shows, is the first thing they do is they say, well, look, there's this huge built-in audience of all the people that love this TV show. And then the next thing they do is they say, but first let's throw out 90% of everything that made the TV show great. When they made Wild Wild West as a feature with Will Smith, A, it was awful. B, it was not true to the original. And C, for God's sakes, you got to use that song. Same thing with Maverick. Same thing with all of these movies that were made from TV shows. It seems like they go out of their way to, well, let's do it different. I thought the Man from U.N.C.L.E. feature was awful. If you ever really knew and loved it, Man from U.N.C.L.E. So they're getting, all they're doing to the audience they thought was built in is pissing us off for not doing it right. And the new people are saying, TV show? There was a TV show? I never saw the TV show. And certainly at the last extremity, nobody's going to watch that current movie, even if they like it, but especially if they don't or find it mediocre in most cases, and say, gosh, I want to go back and see all the TV shows. As opposed to good serials, franchises. For example, for whatever reason, I never just got into or watched John Wick. But number 4, that I saw, it's fantastic. And by God, it's on my list to go look at the other 3.
Oh, you got to, Lou. You got to.
Oh, I'm
You're
going
gonna love
to.
one.
But oh, by the way, I don't know how many of you have heard, but the director of those and Henry Cavill are going to do a remake of Highlander.
That's cool.
That I'll watch, because that's bringing something new to the party. And if they stay true, as I believe they will, to the original ethos of that movie and that series, as indeed its later remakes did not, or sequels, that'll be really special. They're not going to start shooting it until next year, so it'll be a while. But there you go. So
that's so cool. Talented Chad Stileski, I believe.
Yeah.
So talented. I've been a diehard fan of the John Wick films ever since the first one, so I cannot wait to see what Henry Cavill and him do with Highlander. I think that's really, really cool. Also, too, you brought this up. I remember this conversation as part of The Last Starfighter genre, guys, episode 4. I think it was somebody else. I think it was Hangry who was saying, hey, maybe we should think about, remaking The Last Starfighter in the current era. I think you were the one that said, yeah, but it's a film in a time and a place. It has a charm. You might lose that with a remake. I think that's so true. I think that a lot of people don't think about that these films were of their time and of their era, and you might lose a little bit of that when you go to remake these things. I think Back to the Future is like quintessential. Don't touch it. It's just perfect. It's
I
a perfect
agree.
film. That's it. We got 2 sequels, so that's cool.
Yeah, and they were good, but they didn't touch the original, as far as I'm concerned.
I think there's a point to be made there for sure.
But also, there are little teeny things in movies For example, when I was watching for our most recent genre guys, Escape from New York.
Yeah.
Here's this guy with a counter on one wrist and a safety alarm on the other, and it's in the future in that case being 1997. But and he lands and he's going to check in with Lee Van Cleef to tell him he made it in one piece. And he pulls out this, looks like a transistor radio from the 60s thing, and the long antenna and high, because there were no cell phones and nobody imagined them. And there's certain technological stuff in these movies from different eras that are really good to remind us of what the world was like. But if everybody's got all the latest toys, first of all, probably the mission, whatever it is easier to do. Second of all the futurism that's there is not going to solve that problem, you know? So in general, I'm against them is the answer. And in general, the really great movies kind of took a flyer in ways that movies even of their own time were not. And I don't care what you do, if it's a remake, the take a risk angle is gone. Think about some of the biggest, greatest Around the World in 80 Days comes to mind. Made by a maverick producer outside of the studio system primarily, taking a big risk, spending a lot of money. And when I tell you how much money, I mean, to give you an idea, if you remember the movie, at the very end, they're literally tearing the boat apart to feed the wood into the furnace to keep the engine going so they can get home. They did all that. They saw the footage. They didn't like it. They went out and built another boat and did it again.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. And that's Jackie Chan. God.
Yeah, that's not the original.
That's not the one. And Tommy kept doing that with all the remakes.
But here we go, 1956. There you go.
But there's a good example. I love Jackie Chan, but he's not past part two.
Right.
It's just anyway. You can't do it again just because it worked then. You can, and they have twice that I'm aware of. And I think an animated series too, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. Another thing, of course, in a movie like that with all these cameos, with all these, they're in a bar in San Francisco and 3 times you cut to the player piano and don't see his face, and the piano player, when he finally turns around, it's Frank Sinatra. Call me an old fogey if you like. It's been done before and accurately. But I don't know that there's that many current day stars that I would recognize if you cut to them in a scene like that. There he is.
Yeah.
But
man, what would be the current iteration of this? I was gonna say like somebody like Gaga, but I don't even think that's on the level of
well,
cool
but
move like
the
this.
point is you need 40 of them or 50 of them to make what this movie did.
Right. Yeah. $6 million budget. That is huge. This is 1956, guys. $6 million is a lot. For example, I remember that Sleeping Beauty from the Walt Disney Company. That was the kind of first animated film done in kind of 70s VistaVision right there, or kind of like the panorama vision that they had. Unbelievably expensive production for the Walt Disney Company. Did not nearly make at all its money back. That was in 1959. And that was about $6 million as well. Unbelievably huge investment by Disney. The same price was spent on the Matterhorn back in the day to bring that up out of the ground. That was the first tubular steel roller coaster back then that opened in 1959 alongside the monorail and the submarine voyage. So you can just imagine spending $6 million on a film. Well, it gets you a mountain.
I just went to one of those calculators.
Sure.
$6 in 1956 is worth $69.28 today.
Whoa!
So that means $6 million is worth
it's like 60?
$69,280,000.
Okay.
So that's a cheap Disney Marvel picture.
Yeah, we had to have like an inflationary metric of like there's the actual inflation and then there's Hollywood inflation. Sends it sky high.
I'll tell you what, as crazy as the ticket prices have gone, they haven't inflated that much. So even the return is less than what the cost is. So
You're totally 100% right. The market has gotten broader with international, but that's also downsized a little bit without home video. So that's going to be interesting for sure. PR Burke won with another $10 super chat. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank
Unbelievably
you.
generous. I would like to see you all and others like Alan Ing and Pro discuss why we should care about Disney. They need to know that what made all of us fans in the first place. For me, it was innovation/quality. Actually, we have a show not on that Park Place network, but actually on Film Threat going over that. Let me see if I can find it for you because
but before you
actually
do, or while you do, here's the problem, and I appreciate the question.
yes.
And first of all, you say they need to know what made us fans. They don't think they need to know. Discuss why we should care about Disney. They think it's because, well, we're Disney, you fools. Innovation, quality. I guarantee you that Big Bob doesn't define it the same way you do. So all of your heartfelt, reasonable question is based on a reality that doesn't exist, and that is that the audience for your input cares.
Yep.
You see what I mean? You're talking to a wall, so you can talk about it. We can all agree on it. I'm sure we would all agree on it. But they don't care. They really don't care, and they really don't believe that that's the answer to their financial problems.
It's why we call it the Bob Iger Company and not the Walt Disney Company sometimes, is because
I see a lot of people right below this in the chat talking about Willy Wonka and how that new one was okay. And I was pleasantly surprised with it, frankly. It was okay. But Gene Wilder was something special. By the way, I don't know if you've ever seen the clip, but do you remember at the very beginning, well, not of the movie, but of the first time we see Willy Wonka, all the people are at the gate and he steps out and he does this. His cane gets stuck in the pavement and he falls over.
Yes.
And then he gets up again. And the clip is he told them he wouldn't do the movie unless he could do that. And he said the reason he did it was I wanted to tell the audience you can never take this guy on face value because you never know when he's playing games with you. Something the first to think of that as an issue with the character that he wanted to put across. And second, to find that innovative way to do it. Look around on YouTube. That clip is around.
I would love to play it, but I don't think the YouTube censors would let us.
No, I'm sure they wouldn't. But you can search for it. That's easy.
You can search for it. Yeah.
Search for
that clip because it sets a tone with that character, and that's what.
And
Gene
it tells
Wilder is
you
so brilliant
about
at.
Gene Wilder and how thoughtful he was. He was not performing somebody else's script. He was taking a character, figuring out the core of that character, and coming up with the best way to present it. Did I ever tell you the story about the music from Willy Wonka?
No, please.
Oh. Back a million years ago when I was at film school, we had a visit from a guy named Walter Scharf. Walter Scharf, if you look him up, is a great musician and great orchestrator and scorer. He did all the music for those great Jacques Cousteau specials, for example. But he was called in to do the orchestrations and the score for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The score was written, as you probably know, by Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley. You know, Anthony Newley, the singer. They wrote the music and the words to all those great songs. You know, Come With Me and You'll Be in a World of Pure Imagination. But saying they wrote it, what Walter Scharf got from them was handwritten on school-lined paper, the lyrics, and a tape recording of the two of them singing it at a piano someplace, slightly inebriated. He had to start with that to make that score. Now, most of you know, but some of you may not, that music in movies is all post-sync dubbed, and that is the actors lip sync to the tape, to the recording of the song. And the reason for that is because you're cutting from angle to angle. You want the song to be consistent straight through, and that's the way you do it in the movies.
Right.
But it turns out there was one little problem. Gene Wilder can't carry a tune. He is absolutely tone deaf. So how Walter Scharf solved this problem, he and Wilder went into a studio with a piano, and about 3 or 4 notes at a time is all Wilder could do without going off key. So in the days before auto-tune, Scharf sits down at the piano and plays, for example, do, 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 and Gene Wilder tries to sing Come With Me, the first 3 words of the song. And once they get that, they go on to the next one, and you'll be. So and they got the recording finally, 240 some odd pieces of tape, literally physically spliced together to make his voice, and then they dubbed the orchestra in behind it.
I think that's
when you see that number and you see him singing that so effortlessly and gliding around that beautiful set, that's what went into that. With any scene he sings in,
I think that's more splicing than maybe Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. That's insane. That's crazy. To do that hundreds of times and to do it back in the analog days, not an easy trick.
So that's the magic of the movies, folks. You see what you see.
Right.
And he told this story, in relative, I mean, I've spoiled it, but in relative confidence years later. If it was being done now, they'd advertise that in all the special features and all the everything, because they let no secret of movie magic go unexposed, unfortunately. Anyway.
I love that. I love that. It's a great story. I think that's one worth ending on. I know Don CK has a soundstage versus location question. We'll save that for another time. Also, too, Pierre Burke won. I did go ahead and put the link to that Film Threat appearance in the chat right there. And it's a big old podcast with Valiant Renegade, Lorena Creole, Jonas J. Campbell, Pro, and even Chado, and me talking about Walt Disney and its impact. Very good show. Definitely check that out for sure. I think we might have to do a like Disney-centered show. We talk about their history. We'll have to do probably multiple episodes breaking down just how important they were to the cinematic landscape. I think that'd be a fun show. But I think that concludes this episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lew and You. What do you think, Lew?
I think you better eat the rest of those hot dogs you didn't cook yesterday or the day before, because they ain't gonna mustard themselves.
That's right. I you know what? You're right about that. I actually do have some hot dogs. I gotta consume right there. But I think that just about does it. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions, for coming on the show and participating in the chat. You are what makes this whole thing possible. Thank you so much. To the Wild Man Yavin, to PR Burke 1, to everybody who donated today. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing all of this. And, well, we'll see you next time around the backlot. How about that, Lew?
Absolutely. Or under the boardwalk, on the backlot. Whatever. Thanks, everyone.
In your imagination. Thank you, guys. We'll see you around.